We continue now at the top of Daf Vavam and Beis in Meseches Rosh Hashana. This is Rosh Hashana Daf 6b. On the previous Amud, Rava had said that if a person has a promise or an oath that they need to fulfill in terms of, let's say, bringing a carbon, so they have to bring it by the first regel, and if they don't bring it by the first regel, they transgress a positive commandment. Even though they might have 3 regalim in terms of the negative commandment, you only have 1 regel for the positive commandment. So the Gemara had asked a question from a Mishnah in Edius, because the Mishnah in Edius said, let's say you have a situation where a carbon shlamim has a baby, so that baby also has to be brought as a carbon shlamim, and the Mishnah had brought a case where the baby was born on Pesach time, and they didn't bring the baby as a carbon until Sukkot. And so the problem is, if Rav is correct, shouldn't they have brought the baby as a carbon on Shavuos? They have 1 regel. So it's born on Pesach, you have 1 regel to bring it, you should bring it by Shavuos time. Why didn't they bring it by Shavuos? And so the Gemara now answers, Shahaya Chola Batzeres. The case might have been that the baby was sick when it was Shavuos time, you couldn't bring it on Shavuos time, and so that's why they ended up bringing it at Sukkot time. And the Gemara suggests a second answer. Rav Ashi says, the phrasing of the Mishnah was, we ate it as a carbon shlamim on Chag. So maybe it doesn't mean Sukkot. The Katani Chag HaShavuos, when it says over there Chag, it doesn't mean Sukkot like usually the word Chag means, but the word Chag over here means Chag HaShavuos. So really again, they brought this baby as a carbon shlamim on Shavuos, and it fits exactly with what Rava says. And the Gemara continues, V'idach, in the other one, meaning the other answer that was not like Rav Ashi, why didn't they say simply that the word Chag means Shavuos? No, because Kol Hecha de Tani Pesach, Tani Atzeres. Anytime it uses the phrasing of Pesach, it will also say Atzeres. It's not going to say Chag to refer to Shavuos, and that's why they gave the other answer that it was sick on Atzeres. Rashi over here says, Kol Hecha de Katani Pesach, de boy lemisni basrei Shavuos, Tani Atzeres v'lo Chag. Anytime you have Pesach, and then you want to follow up with Shavuos, you call it Atzeres, you wouldn't call it Chag, so that's why they don't like that answer. Instead, again, they give the answer that the animal was sick by Shavuos time. And the Gemara continues, V'yomar Rava, and Rava says, Keivan sha'avru olav gimel regalim, once 3 regalim go by and a person does not fulfill the promise to bring the particular carbon, b'chol yom v'yom over bebal ta'acher. The halach is that every single day that those carbonos are not brought, there's a transgression of bal ta'acher. And so the Gemara says, Meisvei, we have the following question. Echod bechor v'echod kol hakotshim. When it comes to bechor, or whether it comes to any karbonos, kevon she'avru aleim shana below regalim. If a year goes by, even if you don't have 3 regalim that go by, or regalim below shana, or let's say 3 regalim go by, but it's not a full year, over bebal ta'acher. At that point, when the year goes by, or the regalim go by, you're going to transgress on bal ta'acher. So the Gemara says, what is this? How is this a refutation? This doesn't say anything about the fact that every single day there's a transgression. Why is this a refutation of Rava? And so the Gemara says, Amar Rav Kahana says, Man de kamosiv shaper kamosiv. The one that's asking the question from this Tosefta, it actually is a good question. Michli, let us see. Tana alave kamahadir. This Tosefta over here is trying to tell you how you can transgress the lav of Bal Ta'acher, all the different ways that you can transgress. So listni b'chol yom v'yom over Bal Ta'acher. So if you're already listing a year without regalim without a year, you should also say, every single day that you do it, you transgress Bal Ta'acher. So therefore it seems that that's not the case. That's why this is a question against Rava. V'idach, and the other one will respond, Tana limikve belav kamahadir. All the Tana over here is doing is trying to set up the zmanim, the time frames for the lav of Bal Ta'acher. Belav yisere lo kamahadir. The Tana is not trying to list all the ways that you can have many lavin, that you can transgress many lavin. So we're not going to mention the fact that every single day you transgress Bal Ta'acher. That's not relevant. But we are going to mention the fact that 1 year can cause Bal Ta'acher, or 3 regalim can cause Bal Ta'acher. So that's how you would answer the question on behalf of Rava. And so the Gemara continues, Guf again, going back to what we just quoted, this Tosefta, Echod bechor v'echod kol hakotshim, whether you're talking about bechor, whether you're talking about any karbonos, Kevon sha'avru aleim shana below regalim, if 1 year goes by even without 3 holidays, or regalim below shana, let's say 3 holidays go by without a full year, over bebal ta'acher, the person will transgress Bal Ta'acher. So the Gemara says, Bishlam regalim below shana mashkachasla. I understand how you can have 3 regalim go by without a year. That's very simple. You can have Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot go by. It's only going to be around 6 months. It's not going to be a full year. Eloshana below regalim hechem mashkachasla. But how can you have a full year go by, and that doesn't include 3 regalim? Anytime you have a full year, by definition, that should include all 3 regalim. And so the Gemara says, it could work out according to the one who says it needs to be 3 regalim in order. Because if it needs to be 3 regalim in order, it could be much more than 3 regalim. You could have a situation where you need to do 5 regalim. Because let's say, again, you made the promise before Sukkot, so it's not going to be Bal Ta'acher until Sukkot goes by, and then you got to go through Pesach, Shavuos and Sukkot again. Or if, let's say, you made the neder before Shavuos, it's going to be Shavuos, Sukkot, and then Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot again. So in such a situation, again, you could have a case where a whole year goes by, but you don't have the, let's say, 5 regalim won't go by at that point. Elalaman de lesle consider, but according to the one who doesn't hold it has to be in order. According to the shita that says it just has to be 3 regalim, so hechi mashkachas, so how can you have such a situation? Anytime a year goes by, you're for sure going to go through all 3 regalim in some order. It doesn't matter what order. So you're going to go through all 3 regalim of Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot if a full year went by. So the Gemara says, B'shalom l'Rebbe, it could work out according to Rebbe, mashkachas lo b'shana mubaris. It could actually work out, let's say you have a leap year. And the Gemara will explain now as follows. The Tanya, because we learned in a Braisa, Shana Tamima, it talks about a full year. Rashi over here says, B'shlama l'Rebbe damar chodesh ha'ibor eino min hashana. Rebbe says that added month in a leap year doesn't count as part of the year. Chutz miyud aleph yom sheshnas chama yiser al alvan, except for the 11 days that the solar calendar is more than the lunar calendar. So mashkachas la b'shana mubaris. You can have a situation where a full year goes by in a leap year. Shana tamima. The pasuk says Shana tamima ha'amura b'batei arichom. It's talking about, let's say, a person purchases a house in a walled city. So Mona Shin Samech Hey Yomim. The halacha is you get a full year. This is talking about in terms of the halachas of redeeming these properties. You get a full year, which is 365 days. Ve'afilu b'shana pshuta, even in a normal year, ve'af b'shana mubaris, and even in a leap year, it's always 365. It doesn't matter the lunar calendar. We always go by 365 days. Kevan sha'avru gimel meos v'shishim v'chamisha yomim. Once 365 days pass, mishamacha, from when that property is sold, nechlalo, then it becomes a fixed sale to that person. There's no more redemption. That happens to be the halacha by Batei Arichoma. So you have this idea of a full year. So again, the Bryce here continues. Rebbe Yomer Rebbe says, Monigimel Meos V'Shishim V'Chamisha Yom Kaminyan Yimos Achama. When we talk about a full year in halacha, it's 365 days. It follows the solar calendar. We do not care how many, whether it's a full year in terms of the lunar calendar. The Chacham say no. Mona Yud Beis Chodesh Miyom Liyom. You count 12 months from day to day. It goes by the months of the lunar calendar. Vim Nisabra Shana. And let's say you have a situation where it's a leap year. Nisabra Lo. So then the leap year is going to be for his benefit. And what that means is that it's to the seller's benefit. He's going to get the extra month to redeem the property, to redeem that house that he sold. So in any case, the Gemara continues, Mashkachas Lo Rebbe. You can have a situation where a full year goes by without 3 regalim as follows. The Akdasha Basar Chagamatzos. Let's say he made the animal holy. He said he was going to bring a carbon right after Pesach time. The Chimata Shilhi Adar Basra. So when the end of the second Adar comes, Shana Malia, that full year, 365 days, has went by. But regalim lo mala, but you don't have a situation where 3 regalim went by. Because again, if you did it right after Pesach time, so you have to get through Shavuos, Sukkot, and Pesach, but when you get to 365 days, you haven't reached Pesach yet. So you have a situation where 1 year goes by, but 3 regalim don't go by. That could work out, according to Rebbe, that a year is 365 days. Elul Rabbanan, but according to the Rabbanan, that a year goes by the lunar calendar, by the months of the lunar calendar. So how are you going to have a case? Because if you're going by the dates on the calendar, of course, if you go through an entire year, you're going to go through 3 regalim. How do you ever have a case where a year goes by where it's not 3 regalim? And so the Gemara answers, Kedatani Rav Shammai. It's like Rav Shammai taught at Seres when it comes to the holiday of Shavuos. Pa'amim Hey, Pa'amim Shisha, Pa'amim Shiva. Sometimes Shavuos can fall out on the 5th of Sivan, sometimes the 6th of Sivan, and sometimes it can fall out on the 7th of Sivan. Hakeitzad, how so? Shneihen Milein, if both months are full months. Chamish, it's going to fall out on the 5th of Sivan. Shneihen Chaser, and if they're both months that are not full months, so then Shiva, then it's going to fall out on the 7th of Sivan. And Echad Molev, Echad Chaser, if 1 month is full and 1 month is not full, Shisha, then it's going to fall out on the 6th of Sivan. And Rashi over here explains, Pa'amim Shisha Shu Shisha B'Sivan Yom HaChamishim LaOmer. Remember, when it comes to Shavuos, it's always the 50th day of the Omer. So when is that going to fall out? It depends on how the months fall out. Sometimes it's going to be the 6th of Sivan. Shneim Mileim. Let's say Nisan ve'Iyar. Let's say both Nisan and Iyar. Let's say they're both full months, meaning they're both 29 days. So they're both 30 days rather. So in such a situation, are a Tesvav Yamim Nisan, you have 15 days from Nisan. V'Lamed Iyar, you're going to have 30 days from Iyar. That's 30 plus 15. Malaluhu chamishim b'chamisha b'Sivan. And so the 50 days, they're going to be completed on the 5th of Sivan. In a situation where you have 15 days from Nisan and you have 30 days from Iyar, so then the count of the 50 days is going to be on the 5th of Nisan because you have 45 plus 5. And Rashi continues, Echad Malayu mashkachas lashana below regalim. Now that we know that Shavuos can fall out on different days, on different dates, so then you can have a situation where a whole year goes by, but you don't have 3 regalim. For example, for example, Shneim Malayim, let's say you have a situation where both Nisan and Iyar are 30 days. V'ira atzeres behei b'Sivan. And so Shavuos falls out that year on the 5th of Sivan. V'ikdisha l'machras, and then the next day, he makes the carbon holy b'vav b'Sivan. In other words, he says he's going to bring a carbon on the 6th of Sivan. U'l'shana haba hayu shneim chaserim. Now the next year, the months of Nisan and Iyar are both chaser. So meaning they're both going to be 29 days. V'ira atzeres b'zayin b'Sivan. That year it happens to be that Shavuos falls out on the 7th of Sivan. V'hashana mala b'yom vav b'Sivan. But the full year goes by the 6th of Sivan. Mishekdisha, from the time he sanctified the animal. V'yadayin lo avar atzeres Allah, but yet it still wasn't Shavuos. I mean, you still didn't have 3 regalim. That's how you can have a situation where a full year goes by from the 6th of Sivan to the 6th of Sivan, but you don't cross over 3 holidays, because again, in one year, it was the 5th of Sivan that Shavuos fell out, and the next year was the 7th of Sivan, so that's how you can have such a situation. And the Gemara continues, Uman Tana de Poligoled Rav Shemaya, who is the Tana that argues in Rav Shemaya? Acherim, that's the Acherim, the Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa. Acherim Omrim, others say, Ein bein atzeres la'atzeres, Ein bein Rosh Hashana Rosh Hashana. There's no difference between one Shavuos and the next Shavuos, between one Rosh Hashana and the next Rosh Hashana, Eladalid Yom Bilvad, except for 4 days. And if we're talking about a leap year, Chamisha, then it's going to be 5 days. And Rashi over here says, Man Tana Tanakama Deloairi B'Shana Below Regalim, meaning the Tanakama doesn't have this scenario of having a full year without 3 regalim. The Tanakama holds that anytime a full year goes by, it's going to be 3 regalim. So Ela Dalid Yom means to say as follows. Kasavri, this Tana holds, Liolam Kol Chodshei Hashana Echad Mali Ve'echad Chaser. When it comes to the months of the year, it's always going to be one month is going to be a full month. The next month is going to be not a full month. It's not going to be a mole. That's always the way that the months are staggered, according to this Acherim. Ve'in ma'avrin ve'in mechasrin shum chodesh l'tzorach. According to the Acherim, you never make a month into a leap month, or you never make it into a chaser for any particular need. It's always going to be mole chaser, mole chaser, etc. So according to this Tana, according to the Acherim, the year is always going to be 354 days. It's never going to change. Nimtzis kol hashana shvuayim shalemim. So it comes out, if you do the math, that the entire year it comes out to be exactly in sets of weeks. Chutz midalid yom, except for 4 days. It's 4 days off. In other words, it's divisible by 7 with a remainder of 4 days. So it's going to be always, every year, the day of the week that the holidays are going to fall out are going to be 4 days off. Because again, it's divisible by 7 with just a remainder of 4. Now, if it happens to be a leap year, so there's an extra month, so then it's going to be 5 days off. Meaning this Acherim holds that that extra month is always going to be chaser. It's always going to be 29 days. So it's only 1 day, because again, 28 is divisible by 7, 29 is divisible by 7 with a remainder of 1. So it's just 1 day. That's more. Again, it's 1 day more than 4 exact weeks. 7 times 4 is 28. The month itself is going to be 29 days. So the point is, according to this particular Tana, according to the Acherim, the calendar months are set. There's never going to be a situation where you're going to have 2 moles in a row or 2 chasers in a row. That's never going to happen. And according to this Tana, Shavuos is always going to fall out on the 6th of Sivan. So you can't have a scenario where a year goes by without 3 regalim going by. And the Gemara continues, Boy, Rabbi Zeira asks, Yoresh ma'u b'bal ta'acher. What if you have a Yoresh? Does the halacha Baal Ta'achar apply? Meaning his father made a kind of a neder, a promise that he was going to bring an animal as a carbon. So the Yoresh needs to bring that animal as a carbon, but does the transgression of Baal Ta'achar apply to the Yoresh? Ki sidor neder of an achmon of a holo neder. On the one hand, you could say that by Baal Ta'achar it says that you make a neder, and the Yoresh himself didn't make the neder. O Dilmor maybe, uvasa shama v'avesam shama. It says that you come there, you bring the carbon, v'hamachayev, and this Yoresh is chayev to bring this animal as a carbon, so maybe Baal Ta'achar applies to him as well. And so the Gemara says, Tashma, come in here, Detani Rabbi Chia, because Rabbi Chia taught, Me'imach prat li yoresh. It says in the pasuk Me'imach, and that means to exclude a yoresh. A yoresh does not transgress the prohibition of Baal Ta'acher if he delays bringing the carbon of his father. So the Gemara says, V'hai Me'imach mi boile. But the Me'imach, we already used it, Zeleket Shichu Pei. We used it to say that by Leket Shichu and Pei as well, which are parts of the field that are left for the poor, there's a prohibition, there's a transgression of Baal Ta'acher if you don't leave it for the ani in that proper amount of time. So the Gemara answers, Kari bei imach v'kari bei me'imach. You can read it as imach and me'imach, meaning the extra mem can teach us something else. So in other words, we can learn out two halachas from me'imach. We can learn out leket shicha and peah, that Baal Ta'acher applies to those items, and we also learn out again that prat liyoresh, that Baal Ta'acher does not apply to a yoresh, and again that's because the imach we can darshan, and the extra mem we can darshan as well. And the Gemara continues, Boy, Rabbi Zeir asks the following question, Isha mahi b'Baal Ta'acher. What about a woman? Does she transgress Baal Ta'acher? Let's say a woman makes an oath to bring a particular carbon. Again, she doesn't bring it in the proper amount of regalim, so is she going to transgress Baal Ta'acher? On the one hand, maybe we say she's not chayiv in the mitzvah of re'iyah. She's not chayiv to go to the Beis Hamikdash on the regel. Rashi over here says D'chsiv kol zechurcha. It says all of your males need to appear in the Beis Hamikdash on the regel. Since she's not chayiv to go to the Beis Hamikdash on the regalim, so you can't say that 3 regalim applies to her in terms of the transgression of Baal Ta'acher. Oh, Dilmar, maybe mechayva lemesag misham simcha. Maybe she is chayiv to go to the Beis Hamikdash because of simcha. She's supposed to celebrate, be joyous on the holiday. Techsiv v'samachta b'chagecha. It says that you rejoice on the holiday. V'yomar mar b'zman shebeis Hamikdash kayim ein simcha ela b'basar shlamim. The Master said that when there's a Beis Hamikdash, real simcha is only with the meat of the carbon shlamim. Shanamar, like it says in the pasuk, v'zavachta shlamim v'yachalta sham v'samachta. It says you eat the carbon shlamim and you're gonna have happiness. So that's what the Gemara says. Oh, Dilma. Or maybe she is part of the mitzvah of simcha, so therefore she is supposed to go to the Beis Hamikdash, and Baal Ta'acher would apply to a woman. So the Gemara says, Amar le Abaya. So Abaya said to him, he said back to Rabbi Zera, why don't you answer that again? There is a mitzvah of simcha by a woman, and so therefore, of course, there should be Baal Ta'acher. But the Gemara says, but does Abaya really say that simcha should make her, that she has to go to the Beis Hamikdash? But Abaya said, Isha bala misamcha, that when it comes to a wife, her husband is misameach. Rashi over here says, bala misamcha bebavel bebigdei tzivonin, that in Bavel they used to give them colored clothing, Be'eretz Yisrael bebigdei pishton hamiguhatzim, in Eretz Yisrael they used to give them linen clothing, hachisa bekedushin, that's what it says in Kedushin. So on the contrary, Abaya says that a woman fulfills simcha on the holidays without going to the Beis Hamikdash. So why is Abaya saying that simcha should say that she has to go to the Beis Hamikdash and that she can transgress Baal Ta'acher? And so the Gemara says, Lidvar of Rabbi Zera Ka'amar. Abaya was just speaking according to the opinion of Rabbi Zera, meaning according to you, that simcha obligates the woman to go to the Beis Hamikdash, so of course they should be Baal Ta'acher. But Abaya himself happens to be, he didn't hold that. He held that the woman fulfills simcha by her husband giving her these various clothings. So the Gemara continues, they ask the following question, Bechor me'emasai monin lo shana. When it comes to a Bechor, so again we said that by a firstborn animal, you have to bring it as a carbon within the first year. So from what point in time do we count that year? Abaya Amar Mishosha Nolan. Abaya says it's from the time the animal is born, meaning from the time it's born, you have an entire year to bring it as a carbon. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar Mishosha Nira Lahartza. Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, no, you only start counting from when it's able to be brought as a carbon, meaning when it's 8 days old. Again, as we said before, an animal can only be brought as a carbon when it's 8 days old. So from that point in time, you have 1 year to bring the Bechor as a carbon. But the Gemara explains Velo Pligi, but really, Abai and Rav Acha bar Yaakov are not arguing. Habitam, in one case, we're talking about an animal without a blemish. When you have a Bechor without a blemish, so then it's actually brought as a carbon. And we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Zayin Amud Aleph.